Good morning, this is Lisa, CEO of Sight for White, welcoming you to this week's Talking News on Friday the 5th of April. I know what date it is because today I have completed another circuit around the sun and I'm a year older, so wishing everybody a lovely weekend. Thank you, Lisa, CEO, Sight for White and White Sense.
Here is this week's charity news from the 5th of April 2024. White Sense Hearing Impairment members' coffee morning is on Monday the 8th of April at the End of the Line Cafe in Freshwater from 10:30 to 12 p.m. Please call the office to book your place. There is no swimming on Monday due to the school holidays. Swimming will resume next Thursday on the 15th of April. Yoga is not on this Tuesday, the 9th April, but will resume next week, the 16th at 1:45 p.m. at Millbrook House. All are very welcome. Our weekly coffee and chat is on Wednesday at Millbrook House between 10 a.m. and 11:30 a.m. The cost is £2, which includes coffee and cake. Staff are always on hand to help with any inquiries, and equipment will be available to try out. Our monthly art class is on Wednesday at the Parkland Centre, Park Road, Cowes, starting at 10 a.m. The cost is £10 to include materials. Maddie the blind artist is fantastic and a great tutor. Please call the office to book a space.
And Thursday is Mix and Mingle. This group meets between 10:30 and 2 p.m. every week. Booking for this group is essential, and at the moment there is a waiting list for people to join. Our monthly book club is on Thursday at the Lord Louis Library, Newport, starting at 2 p.m. The group receive a book from the RNIB and then discuss together at their monthly meetings. The group is free to join and always looking for new members. Our volunteer Paul is running another quiz at the Gallibaggers in Chillerton on Friday night, the 12th. Booking is essential. If you would like a table, please call the office. April the 19th, we have another pudding and quiz night at Millbrook House. The cost is £5 per person to include the pudding. Teams are limited to 4 people and limited numbers due to lack of space. If you would like to book a table, please call the office. We still have spaces available for the pottery on April the 20th at Jubilee Stores, Newport. The cost is £25. Our monthly 100 Club has spare balls available. If anyone would like to buy a ball, it is £2 per month or £24 for the full year. The more balls in draw, the higher the prize money each month. If you would like to take part in our monthly draw, please call the office. This is part of our fundraising activities. If you would like to join any activity or want more details, please call the office on 522205.
Hello, this is an article from the Island Echo read by Sue. UK's butterfly winners and losers of 2023 revealed. The latest results from the annual UK Butterfly Monitoring Scheme, UKBMS, show that 2023 was a mixed picture for butterflies, with some species soaring while others continued whirling declines. Half the 58 species had a better than average year, while the other half were below average at monitoring sites. Species that flourished included checkered skipper, brimstone and large blue, which all recorded their best year since the UK BMS began in 1976. Another species recording its best ever year was the red admiral, a migratory species that has begun to overwinter in the UK as the climate has warmed, making it a common visitor across all habitats, including gardens. Its numbers have increased by 318% at monitored sites since 1976. At the other end of the scale were the small pearl-bordered fritillary and garden favourite, the small tortoiseshell, recording their lowest numbers in the 48 years of monitoring, declining by 71% and 82%, respectively, since 1976. Small tortoiseshell had its worst year on record in England, second worst in Wales, and joint fifth worst in Scotland in 2023, but did really well in Northern Ireland, logging its second best year. The large blue, which was reintroduced to the UK after becoming extinct in the 1970s, recorded its best year yet, showing the conservation work with this species is really working. Other species that had a remarkable year include brown argos, marbled white, comma, black hairstreak, and holly blue, which all ranked in their top 3 best years since 1976. On the other hand, cryptic wood white, grizzled skipper, pearl-bordered fritillary, grayling, and Scotch argos face significant difficulties. The green-veined white and ringlet both had a poor year, perhaps suffering ongoing effects from the drought the previous summer. Dr. Richard Fox, head of science at Butterfly Conservation, said, "Butterfly numbers fluctuate naturally from year to year, largely due to the weather. But the long-term trends of UK butterflies are mainly driven by human activity, including habitat damage and destruction, pesticide use, pollution, and climate change. By monitoring long-term butterfly trends, we can learn about the impact of climate change and other factors on our native wildlife."
Hello, this is Steve reading a story from Isle of Wight Radio, headlined "Red Arrows to Grace the Skies at Isle of Wight Armed Forces Day." Following an emotive pitch by Isle of Wight Armed Forces Day organiser Ian Dorr, Ryde Town Council voted in favour of funding a Red Arrows display over Ryde. The Red Arrows were last seen over the island at the festival in 2022 and over the sea at Cowes in 2017. Their UK display season takes them all over the country, and then from mid-August they fly the flag, touring overseas. Ian, who spoke at Tuesday's Town Council meeting, said, "When I took on Armed Forces Day, the team and I had some ambitions, and this was at the top of the list. 1 year in and whammy, here we are. To have the Reds over Ryde streaming the red, white and blue will be nothing short of stunning." It was requested to commemorate the 80th anniversary of D-Day, in which Ryde and a number of brave islanders played their part. It stems from careful negotiation and planning dating back to September 2023. The Royal Aerobatic Team, the Red Arrows, are celebrating their 60th Diamond Anniversary year with a brand new Red 1 leading the display. Their signature moves include Corkscrew, Vortex, Detonator, and the much revered Harp and Spear. Depending on the weather, full, rolling and flat displays are available to the team as they perform off Ryde Esplanade. Ian added, "The Reds install an element of pride that is unrivalled. With this display we'll be paying tribute to past generations, entertaining the present and inspiring the future. It's a first for Ryde, a first for Isle of Wight Armed Forces Day, and a privilege to have them offered to us. It's the unwavering support from Ryde Town Council that has facilitated the funding for this. If it all comes together as we hope, the Reds will be opening the show on Sunday, 30th of June. Smoke on, go."
Hello, this is an article from the Island Echo, read by Sue. MP writes to Maritime Minister casting doubt over Red Funnel's service. The Isle of Wight's MP has written to the Minister for Maritime International and Security, Lord Davis of Gower, to raise islanders' concerns about red funnel services in advance of a Department for Transport meeting with the company. In his letter, Bob Seeley, MP, has reiterated concerns raised about red funnel in his report into the performance of the Cross Solent market. The report calls for government regulation of the Cross Solent ferry operations. He states that he is concerned about the sale of Redjet 4, which will leave just 2 high-speed vessels to operate a 2-boat timetable on the West Cowes Southampton Redjet service. Bob has told the Minister that islanders are fed up with delays and cancellations, and has questioned whether Red Funnel can run a stable timetable with only just 2 red jets. Mr. Seeley goes on to say, I believe we should be concerned about the performance of both major Cross Solent ferry operators, Whitelink and Red Funnel. Successive buyouts and sales of Red Funnel have engineered the group to be heavily indebted to banks and shareholders. One of the things that concerns me most is that despite Red Funnel's significant operating profits, over 20% of turnover in 2019, which is over 13 million, and its reported bank loans of over 125 million in 2019. The company has not replaced its car ferries in almost 30 years and will still be required to fundraise for investment in new ships. The MP has also told the Minister that the current model for Cross Solent ferry services had limited investment in connectivity and degraded passenger services. For a given Monday in February in 1999, Red Funnel operated 32 passenger sailings from West Cowes. Today it operates only 22 sailings. In 1999, the passenger crossing took 22 minutes. Today it takes 28 minutes, in part to reduce fuel consumption. In the 2000s, the company maintained its 2-boat passenger timetable using a minimum of 3 vessels. Today, Red Funnel has removed backup vessels for passenger services, such that if one vessel fails, the timetable can no longer be maintained. A number of questions have been put to Lord Davies of Gower by Bob Seeley, which will also be asked of Red Funnel. What is the value of the Red Funnel Group's total debt, and what is the function of this debt? What is the ratio between the Red Funnels Group's capital value and debt? What proportion of the Red Funnels Group's debt is index linked? How much interest does the Red Funnel Group pay on its debts per year, and is this acceptable? Over the past 20 years, has Red Funnel sought to reduce operating expenditure per passenger? Over the past 20 years, has Red Funnel raised the average fare per passenger above inflation? This relates to the average of all fares given yield management pricing. Does Red Funnel expect to maintain its current passenger service with 2 passenger vessels in use?
Hello, this is Steve reading a story from the Island Echo, headlined, Former Banker Said to be Behind Plans to Launch New Ferry Service. It's been revealed that a former banker from Seaview is considering starting up a new Cross Solent ferry firm to rival Whitelink and Red Funnel. Island resident Nick Wakefield is said to be exploring the opportunities for introducing a public ferry service between the Isle of Wight and the mainland. Mr. Wakefield is the director of a company called Rideport 2000 Limited, described as providing service activities incidental to water transportation. It was incorporated in December 2021, with 2 other directors listed, John Fisher and John Cluley. It was in October 2021 that Island Echo reported that a consortium of island businesses and key figures were working on plans to introduce a community ferry service to and from Portsmouth. But nothing has come of this in the 2.5 years since. Isle of Wight MP Bob Seeley revealed Mr. Wakefield as being behind future plans to Parliament on Tuesday during a debate on Cross Solent ferries. Mr. Seeley revealed that he's trying to support 2 potential competitors entering into the market, a passenger ferry and a potential car ferry, but named only Nick Wakefield. The MP noted that it's a difficult situation though, because the existing ferry firms also own the ports. During his speech to the House of Commons, Mr Seeley called on the government to support new operators to help break the duopoly of Whitelink and Red Funnel. He said it would also break the monopoly of a corrupted private equity-style investment system. Mr Seeley asked whether or not the Department for Transport has an opinion on supporting new ferry companies.
Hello, this is an article from the Isle of Wight Radio, read by Sue. Rookley Church Hall set for demolition as house plan revealed. A former Isle of Wight Church Hall could be demolished to make way for a home. It comes after the thumbs up was given for the transformation of Rookley Methodist Church on Knighton Road into a 2-bed house. Tucked behind the church is a hall that was built in 1956 and was used until 2019 in connection with the Methodist Church. The former church site has been on the market since 2022, but little interest has been shown in taking them on as a community facility. Now, island company Carter Muse has put forward plans to demolish the church hall and build a taller but slimmer house. Planning documents said the church hall, which is a single-storey building with a kitchen, lobby and toilets, does not create a pleasing outlook for either the Methodist chapel or the buildings fronting Knighton Road. To preserve the history of the hall, a circular feature on its north wall would be reproduced in the new building. An EV charging point could also be installed. You can view the plans on the Isle of Wight Council's planning register. Comments can be submitted until the 5th of May.
Hi everyone, this is Steve reading a story from the Island Echo, headlined Yarmouth Woodland Benefits from College Students Support. Students from the Isle of Wight College have been learning new skills whilst helping Wight Nature Fund trustees breathe new life into Mill Copse, a popular public access woodland to the south of Yarmouth. The students from the Uniformed Public Services course at Isle of Wight College have been volunteering as part of their Duke of Edinburgh scheme. Working with the trustees of Wight Nature Fund, the students were taught skills specific to the work, including coppicing, hedge making using natural materials from the copse, and creating wildlife habitats. This work has enhanced the students' key skills, including teamwork and leadership, in a practical environment. The work was made possible through a grant for the hand tools the students used. The grant was from the DEFRA Farming and Protected Landscapes Fund, awarded by the Isle of Wight National Landscape, that's formerly the AONB, partnership. The volunteering took place over 4 weeks in February and March. The newly coppiced area has helped create space for natural plant species to thrive. This will improve the health and biodiversity of Mill Copse, whilst creating useful coppice products from the woodland. Vicky Gill, the course leader from Isle of Wight College, said, "Participating in the Mill Copse Conservation Project has been an extraordinarily rewarding experience, not only for the environment, but significantly for our uniformed public services students. This project has transcended traditional classroom boundaries, provided our students with a unique opportunity to engage directly with the natural world. It's been a practical extension of their Duke of Edinburgh award efforts, where the principles of leadership, teamwork and personal development are put into real-world practice. Seeing our students apply themselves in coppicing and hedge laying, mastering new tools and techniques, has been a testament to the resilience and adaptability that we strive to instill in them. This initiative has reinforced invaluable skills such as leadership, teamwork and problem solving, which are essential in the uniformed services. More importantly, it has shown them the tangible impact of their actions on the community and environment. The project has vividly demonstrated that what they do truly makes a difference, enhancing their understanding of environmental stewardship and community responsibility." 17-year-old Grace was one of the students from the course and said the opportunity has been a real eye-opener. "We're all learning different skills while we're out here on the job and learning more about the environment we're in as well. I think that's a very big part because I've never been here to Millcops before. So that's also developing our environmental awareness skills. Grace said that she will be back. I'm definitely going to come back here because this is a new environment that I can explore, and it's likely that I'm going to be doing volunteering here again. White Nature Fund trustee Thomas Cowley was on hand to teach some of the skills and direct the work. Thomas said, "The work of the uniformed public services students has been outstanding. They've been super keen, often working through inclement weather, to help enhance the environment that will improve biodiversity in Millcops. On behalf of the trustees of White Nature Fund and the people that use Millcops as a recreational destination, I want to thank the Uniformed Services course at the college for their work. The difference it has made to our valuable ancient woodland is significant. The coppicing work helps increase the biodiversity in the woodland. It will allow the bluebells in this area to increase in number and allow woodland butterflies to flourish too. Coppicing work is an ancient technique which creates many more hazel stems where the work is done. This enhances the environment for endangered native species, including dormice and the island's red squirrels."
Council tax hike set to kick in with lake, freshwater and Totland residents hardest hit. From the Isle of Wight Radio. Isle of Wight residents have been getting their increased council tax bills for the year ahead, with some islanders in for an eye-watering surprise. The cost of every town, parish and community council precept has been revealed for islanders, showing the different amounts residents are charged depending on where they live. A precept is an additional charge for residents which goes towards the work and services provided by local town, parish and community councils. This is on top of other costs paid to the Isle of Wight Council, the police and fire services. Bills will rise an average of 11% across the island, with an average bandy precept standing at £120.88 for the smaller councils. However, 25 of the 33 town, parish and community councils pay less than the average, with New Church residents who have the lowest council precept on the island paying less than a sixth of the average at £19.38 a year. Other low-paying authorities include Rookley at £33.71, Fishbourne £40.34, Northwood £40.77, and Wroxall £41.81. The table below shows all the changes in percentages and pounds. 5 areas on the island will see a decrease in their payments or no increase at all. Those in Chale and East Cowes will stay the same, but those in Rookley, Fishbourne and Gurnard will see their bills shrink. Others won't be so lucky, with 28 towns and villages putting up their prices. Lake residents are facing the biggest increase in council tax, with a 66% increase to bolster Lake Parish Council's reserves and pay for new toilets and the repairs to the revetment toilets. This year's hike is on top of an eye-watering 90% rise the year before. It means from April, Band D residents will pay triple what they used to pay, previously paying £51 in 2022 and now facing a £163 bill. Totland Parish Council has also raised its price for residents by 60%, so it can continue to support the village community post office, buying the church hall on the Broadway, as well as other projects. Band D residents will see their bills increase from £104.60 to £167.58, the fifth most expensive on the island. Freshwater residents will now join Sandonians in paying, on average, more than £200 a year for its parish and town council activities. The most expensive precept on the island remains to be for Sandown taxpayers, after it rose by 6.6%, now standing at an average £232.80. The increases will come into effect from the 1st of April.
Gillscliff Road to remain closed for the foreseeable as rock falls continued. This is from the Island Echo. Ventnor's Gillscliff Road looks set to remain closed for the foreseeable future as specialists' work needs to be undertaken to make the area safe. It was in mid-February that a rock fall occurred near the junction with Castle Road, leading to the lower half of Gillscliff Road being closed in both directions. Since then, work has been undertaken to clear debris from the carriageway and cut back vegetation, which has included cutting down well-rooted trees. However, rock falls are still occurring, which poses a risk to public safety. Island Roads has revealed that specialist work is now required to remove any loose materials that could fall. The work is yet to be commissioned, suggesting that it could be several weeks, if not months, before the road is safe to reopen. There is growing frustration in the town of Ventnor, as several roads have been closed due to land movement in recent weeks, such as Leeson's Road and Bath Road. Concerns are mounting for the Graben at Newport Road too, as island roads continue to fill in the cracks that are opening up on a weekly basis. A spokesperson for Island Roads has said, "Though we continue to undertake clearance work in Gillscliff Road, including the removal of vegetation and large boulders, we remain concerned at the risk of further significant rockfalls. Further specialist work is required both to look at the further removal of unstable materials and/or to look at how any loose material can be prevented from entering the highway. This work will be commissioned as a priority. We appreciate that this ongoing issue is causing some local inconvenience, but the safety of all road users is our absolute priority."
EE and trading scams among latest Isle of Wight alerts from the Isle of Wight Radio. A series of new scam warnings have been issued for the Isle of Wight. Without further ado, here are the details of what to look out for. EE scam. Scammers are purporting to be EE either in phone calls or texts. The phone call will offer to reduce your direct debit if you signed up with them. All this will do is give access to your bank details to the criminals behind the scam. The text remind you that you have points that can be converted into prizes and they will expire shortly. It will ask you to click on a link. This is a scam. Do not respond to these criminal contacts. Business invoice scam. If you are a business, be wary about emails that claim to be sending an invoice for something you've ordered or received. The attachment may include malware. The link may take you to a fake website that could capture your details, or the phone number could be registered as a premium rate number. If you receive an email that might fit this category, stop and think about whether you have actually ordered or received anything. And if you are in any doubt, find the company's number online and contact them independently. council scam. Scammers are purporting to be the council again to discuss any issues you may have with housing. This is potentially a phishing exercise, where your information could be harvested and used at a later date in future scams. Trading scams. If you're looking for a tradesperson to carry out any work, be very careful when searching the internet. Trading Standards has found that some companies are providing a dating service for consumers and traders, and the consumer is paying between £60 and £120, which they believe is a call-out fee, but it is in fact a booking fee. The local trader won't see any of that money, and when he arrives and discusses his call-out fee, the customer is shocked, believing that they have already paid it. You will never need to pay a fee up front for a local trader. If you do need anything fixed, built or repaired, check out our trader approval scheme for a trusted trader.
Paddle Ride Island Tennis Club set to embrace sporting craze with new courts following investment. This is from Isle of Wight Radio. The latest sports craze, paddle, could soon be coming to the Isle of Wight in a major investment for an island tennis club. Padel is a fast-growing sport which started in Mexico and is played by celebrities and professional sportsmen and women. It is a mix of tennis and squash. The racket sports is played in doubles and scored like tennis, with two halves of a court, but boxed in like squash, and balls can be hit against the glass walls. Now Ride Lawn Tennis and Croquet Club is looking to create the island's first two all-weather padel courts, with the club saying the Isle of Wight is the last county in England to get one. In planning documents, the club says padel courts would go hand in hand with its current offer and could appeal beyond its current members, providing a social hub and help sustaining the existing facility. It could cost around £150,000, with the cash coming from multiple sources, including Sports England, the Lawn Tennis Association, and club money made from fundraising, taken from reserves and potential memberships, increasing costs. Importantly, the club says by providing the facilities, it could become a transition sport for some of the club's older players who now find tennis too strenuous. It is hoped with the increased revenue from padel, the club could move to phase 2 of the development, constructing the island's first and only indoor purpose-built tennis facility, which was paused due to the COVID pandemic. The club also says the courts could provide significant health and well-being benefits while attracting new members and allowing the club to maintain its facilities to the best possible standard. The club on Play Street Lane near Ride Academy could add the enclosed courts with integrated floodlights besides the tennis ones. In planning documents, the club said the courts, which are 20 metres long by 10 metres wide, could sit at ease within the site and cause no harm to the character and appearance of the surrounding area. You can view the plans on the Council's planning register. Comments can be submitted until April the 26th.
The Isle of Wight continues to welcome multitudes of audiences from the Island Echo. According to Visit Isle of Wight, the English island welcomes about 2.6 million yearly visitors who can spend up to £330 million. Known for its verdant landscape, eye-catching coastal scenery and dynamic cultural setting, the Isle of Wight offers visitors unforgettable experiences that kept them returning. The advantage of UK's tech advancements. Isle of Wight's festival and cultural activities continue to benefit the UK's overall tech advancements. The popularity of online platforms and high-speed internet advancement ensure that fans can conveniently access activities like gambling and other forms of online entertainment. The fun is even enhanced with platforms like Live Casino UK, where players can engage in games with live dealers in real time coming to the surface. 5G network continues to dominate the county, with most urban areas already enjoying decent coverage. In just 2021, Cowswick was selected to participate in a 825,000 5G government project that was aimed at improving people's lives in the UK. 50 boats were fitted with high-definition cameras to allow for live streaming of the races on big screen around the town and for internet audiences worldwide. This project aligns with the UK's mission to have all populated regions plus rural places covered with 5G standalone by 2030. Multiple festivals for multiple tastes. Cowswick. Featuring over 8,000 competitors, Cowswick is one of the world's oldest regular regattas, running for 7 days. By attracting over 100,000 spectators, Cowswick has ranked as the largest sailing regatta in Europe. The festival does not restrict its audiences to sailors. You can also attend to spectate if you are not a sailor. The area between the castle of the Royal Yacht Squadron and the cannons is one of the best viewing locations, although it's characterized by loud bangs. By booking at the Regatta Centre during the event, you can enjoy watching the races on spectator boats, which offer rides for up to 1 hour. Cows has an app for both iOS and Android that allow audiences to follow the event even from home. Isle of Wight Festival. First held in 1968, the Isle of Wight Festival treats audiences to electrifying performances from renowned artists from various genres, including rock, pop, and electronic music. It's a 4-day event that features performance by famous artists like Jimi Hendrix and David Bowie. In the 1970s event, it was headlined by Jimi Hendrix, welcomed over 600,000 people. Besides music, the Isle of Wight Festival features several art performances, a variety of food vendors, and merchandise stands. There is a camping site with a friendly and relaxed atmosphere for visitors who prefer on-site. In addition to the Isle of Wight Festival, the island hosts various smaller music events throughout the year, ranging from jazz and blues festival to folk and classical concerts. These events showcase local talent and attract renowned performers worldwide, further enriching the cultural tapestry of the Isle of Wight. The Isle of Wight continues to captivate multitude of audiences with its diverse offerings, such as world-class music festival. As a testament to its enduring allure, the island remains a cherished destination for travelers seeking enriching and unforgettable experiences.
Islanders urged to arrive on time for household waste and recycling. This is from Isle of Wight Radio. Residents are being urged not to arrive too early for bookings at the Household Waste and Recycling Centres, HWRCs, to prevent queues building up on the main roads. For the second weekend running, the sites, especially at Lynn Bottom, have been queuing, which has caused further delays down the road. This has made it both unsafe for other road users and added to delays in accessing the sites. Councillor Laurie P.C. Wilcox, Cabinet Member for Waste Management, said, "We know this time of year is busy as people take advantage of the spring weather and particularly the Easter bank holiday to tattle a spring clean. This also coincides with the tourist season beginning in earnest on the island, so our roads are also becoming busier. I would urge residents to stick to the times they have booked and not to arrive too early, please." Natasha Dix, Service Director for Waste, Environment and Planning, added, "Please stick to the time you have booked. If you don't have a booking, you won't be able to enter the site. You can check if traffic is busy in the area beforehand by visiting www.roadworks.org and plan your journey so you arrive on time. We advise arriving no sooner than 10 minutes before your allotted time. The tips are also quieter from 3 p.m. onwards, so you have the option of booking at a quieter time if you wish, especially since the introduction of same-day booking last autumn. Top tips. Think before you throw, as some items you are disposing of could go to a charity shop or be reused. Sort your items before you go, so your items are ready in your boot in like-for-like piles, ready to pick up and place in the right skips, e.g. bundle all wood together, place all clothing in one pile to deposit on arrival quickly. Did you know the council offers a free reuse collection service for white goods and furniture in a good condition? Visit www.iow.gov.uk/waste. There is also a paid for bulky waste collection service for reusable large white goods and furniture. Visit www.roadworks.org to check out traffic in the area before you leave. Book before you go. Please make sure you book your trip to the HWRCs before you go. If you do not have a booking, you will not be able to enter. You can book at www.iow.gov.uk/waste. Lynn Bottom HWRC is open 10 a.m. to 6 Monday to Sunday. Afton March AWRC is open 10 to 6 Saturday, Sunday and Monday. This is Imelda reading the news, reading the paper for you today.
And Gerard joining in.
And we start with family party as the Cascades reopen. The Ventnor Cascades reopen following a refurbishment with a family celebration on Friday. The carnival atmosphere, including the opening of the town's iconic paddling pool and the blessing of the historic drinking fountain at the bottom of the cascade, which has been restored thanks to the Ventnor Enhancement Fund. The official opening ceremony, including the cutting of a ribbon by Senior Carnival Queen Susie, with the Reverend Nicola Pinnock, Deacon of St. Catherine's Church, blessing the fountain in a short service. There were children's games organised by the Town Council as well as information about the town's heritage on display. The major refurbishment scheme was carried out by Island Roads and including replacing the rusting Victorian railings with those meeting modern safety standards and resurfacing the walkway. The Cascades are often known as the Rene Ho Walk, in memory of a late teacher who lived in Ventnor and taught at St Boniface School. Haven Street-based Stoneham Construction managed the scheme, with East Cowes-based C45 undertaking the formation of the reinforced concrete slab and edge beam. The railings were produced and installed by Cowes-based DMR Engineering and powder-coated by Island Powder Coating and Electroplating in Sandown. White building materials provide concrete for the foundation and resurfacing materials, and scaffolding was supplied by Newport-based MG Solutions. Ed Blake, Isle of Wight Councillor for Ventnor and St Lawrence, said, "It's brilliant. The project was finished in time for Easter. As the only pedestrian access for disabled people and pushchairs to the seafront, the repair project was vital to maintain full accessibility. The 140-year-old water fountain was refurbished by the team from Island Memorials at Sanford. People will be able to fill water bottles there to emphasise that the fountain is able to fulfil its original purpose as intended 140 years ago."
Take it as read. Titchmarsh advice to save our squirrels. Popular British gardener Alan Titchmarsh, who owns a home on the Isle of Wight, advises tree planting now to support red squirrels. As an ambassador for the Red Squirrel Survival Trust, Mr. Titchmarsh said the Reds love the fruits of a range of trees and shrubs, and planting them now will ensure they begin producing the food as the Reds emerge into new areas and gardens. Off the island, Mr. Titchmarsh has been collaborating with DEFRA on producing a contraceptive to control grey squirrel breeding. This will be added to food in feeders only greys can open, initially in woodland inhabited only by greys. This is a long-term project designed to provide supplementary feeding for our native red squirrels as they move back into areas currently populated by alien grey squirrels. This will happen once a fertility control program designed to stop grey breeding spreads across the UK, explained Alan. To support red squirrels populations, it is recommended to plant walnuts, hazelnuts, conifer seeds, holly berries, crab apples, wild and bird cherries, bullace, dog rose, and guelder rose hips, blackberries and raspberries. They are all attractive trees in a garden, he added.
Social workers issue strike threat to council over rota. Adult social work staff working for the Isle of Wight Council, angered by the authority's controversial proposal to work on a mandatory rather than a voluntary rota, could take strike action, say trade union Unison. Employees on standby are required to respond to emergency situations over the telephone or in person outside working hours. Although this has always had an impact on their work-life balance, plus their family care and social commitments, staff found a consensus between them to ensure that there was 24-hour cover, says the union. However, moves to impose a new compulsory scheme on the 90 staff affected by it has caused anger. Social workers have already agreed overwhelmingly to take industrial action, with the initial withdrawal of goodwill on standby shifts having the potential to develop into a strike, adds Unison. The union's Southeast regional organiser, Dame Smith, said, "This dispute could be resolved speedily, but it requires managers to halt their current proposals and involve staff in developing a workable alternative." Unfortunately, the Council's combative stance has made an issue that could have been resolved through agreement much more challenging. A long-term solution can be found, but pressing ahead with these plans could endanger the stability of this vital service. Unison's Isle of Wight's local government branch secretary, Mark Chiverton, said he was nonplussed with the council's stance. "This is an award-winning social work team that always works extremely hard to ensure residents are provided with an excellent service 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. They've achieved that through consensus and working with the council. That's what makes these new proposals so disappointing." A council spokesperson said they have been working since August 2023 with staff and Unison to consult on the change and to try to identify a resolution, but regrettably, attempts to resolve the issues have been unsuccessful. They said they want to reassure islanders that care arrangements will not be affected by any straight action and emergency cover would be in place. Laura Gaudian, Isle of Wight Council Director of Adult Social Care and Housing, said, "Social work is not, nor has it ever been, a Monday to Friday 9 to 5 role. People cannot plan for social care emergencies and crisis, and the majority of crisis situations developed outside of core business hours." She thanks staff helping with the standby arrangements and said she remained committed to ongoing engagement with Unison and staff.
Opening times reduced. Islanders can no longer seek help and advice from the Isle of Wight Council's contact centre at the weekend, after the authority cut the service's opening hours to save money. Opening times of the centre at County Hall, Newport, have been reduced as of the 1st of April. It means the service is opening later, closing earlier, and there is now no weekend support at all. It will only be available from Monday to Friday between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. The contact centre is open for islanders in the heart of Newport to seek help and advice from the team on a number of issues, including council tax and financial queries, or they can point out you in the right direction to a service which can help. Previously, it was open from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday to Friday and 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Saturday. The decision to cut the hours was made as part of the Isle of Wight Council budget-saving measures in February and will save the authority £29,400. The Council also operates help centres in Ryde and Newport, where residents can book face-to-face appointments to seek help.
Mountbatten Runabout sold. A former police car, owned and used on the Isle of Wight by Lord Louis Mountbatten, has been sold for less than its estimated auction valuation. The vehicle, a 1975 Rover P6 3500s, went under the hammer at Birmingham NEC. Estimated at between 15,000 to 20,000, it sold for a bargain price of 12,938. It belonged to Mountbatten, who was the final governor of the island from July the 20th, 1965, and later the First Lord Lieutenant from April the 1st, 1974. At one point, at his request, it was painted black to look more stately as his official staff car. For security reasons, in 1978, it was registered to the local fire chief. After Mountbatten's death, it was taken to the council and continued to be used by the chairman before being sold into private ownership. It was later discovered abandoned in a pigsty in East Leigh in the late 1990s. Its restoration consisted of new panels and a new engine, and it was repainted in the original livery, whilst its police equipment was restored.
Lucky Duck Prison Rescue. 2 little ducklings were rescued on Easter Sunday from a storm drain in HMP Isle of Wight. Carisbrooke vets were caring for the pair after they were rescued by prison staff. A spokesperson for the veterinary surgery said, "We had a little Easter surprise in the form of 2 small ducklings. We received a call advising us that these little ones found themselves in a bit of trouble, having fallen into a storm drain. Their rescue team had a handy tool to help, a good old mop with a ladle attached, to scoop them out. The fluffy ducklings were placed into a heated incubator to be warmed and were soon full of beans. They will be cared for by experts before being released once big enough. Thank you to officers and staff at the prison for their swift action in saving these little ones," said the surgery team.
Sarah takes on the London Marathon. A charity worker is going the extra mile to raise money for breast cancer now by taking part in her 4th London Marathon later this month. Sarah Tyrrell Jones, 49, from Sandown, is the Breast Cancer Now community fundraiser on the island and is hoping to break her personal best on April the 21st. She said, "I never in my wildest dreams thought I would run 4 consecutive marathons. It's been brilliant. I train most of the year doing running, swimming and some yoga, which keeps me feeling good mentally and physically. But it's still hard work getting around the course on the day. It doesn't get any easier. The crowd play a big part with their support, and my husband and the Breast Cancer Now team are at various points along the course, so that gives me a huge boost. And my best time is 6 hours, 36 minutes, because I'm not a fast runner, but I'm hoping for around 6 hours this time."
MP not welcome in Reform Party. Sarah Morris and Ian Pickering, the Isle of Wight parliamentary candidates for Reform UK, say that MP Bob Seely would never be welcome in their party. The comment came after Mr. Seely claimed in the Sun newspaper that he had been approached to join Reform by text message from a senior member of the party. He said that he would not join a ragtag group with no hope of governing or leading. In an open letter to Mr. Seely, Sarah Morris, the candidate for Isle of Wight East, said that Mr. Seely's claims had been dismissed by the most senior members of the Reform Party, with party leader Richard Tice saying that Mr. Seeley is full of nonsense. She asked Mr. Seeley for details of who had made the offer so that his claims could be substantiated, adding, "We find it hard to believe that someone with your ever leftward views, and at best only a mild supporter of Brexit, will ever be welcome in our party, and certainly not in the light of the Conservative Party's gross mismanagement of government, be welcome here as even a party member on the Isle of Wight." Mr. Seeley said in his article that the government has had a difficult few years due to COVID and the energy crisis, but that things were turning a corner, including on immigration, despite the news that the number of people arriving in UK on small boats rose above 5,000 by the end of March, the highest number on record. Mr. Seeley tops up his £91,346 salary as an MP by writing for newspapers and TV appearances. This year he has earned £2,550 for 5 hours' work, charging more than £500 an hour. He also declares an income from renting out a house he jointly owns in London. The threshold for registration is that he earns at least £10,000 a year. He is also an army reservist, which enables him to earn additional income.
Medina Time Trails. Sunday, March 24th, saw the second of 2024 Isle of Wight rowing formal time trials on the Medina. Hosted by Newport Rowing Club, a bright day with a gusty wind gave scullers a challenge, but all crews coped well. In Division 1, over a 3.4 kilometre course, Newport had a men's crew of both junior and novice rowers, who finished second in 15.28. Shanklin and Sandown Rowing Club crossed the line first in 14.30. Newport's Women Masters crew rowed well, with a corrected time of 17.41, almost 2 minutes ahead of their direct competition, and were the fastest women's coastal crew in the division. In Division 2, over 1.7 kilometres, Newport had 3 coastal fours enter in the men's novice and junior, and in the women's masters. The junior crew rowed well in a time of 7.26, becoming the fastest coastal boat. The women's masters crew rose well, with a corrected time close to the men's novices, who finished in 8.30.
Royal visitors are on their way to the island. The island will twice welcome royalty in May. At the start of the month, the Duke of Edinburgh is scheduled to visit the bottling plant at White Crystal, Dash Way, Newport. His Royal Highness Prince Edward turned 60 in March, and to mark the occasion was pictured by island photographer Chris Jelf. He last visited the island in 2022 when he paid a trip to Pan Together alongside the Duchess of Edinburgh. Later in the month, the Princess Royal is due to visit the National Coast Watch Institution, 4 Lancefield Road, Bembridge. Princess Anne will also head to Seaview, where she will open the Seaview Yacht Club Training Centre on Dover Road. Her Royal Highness and her husband, Vice Admiral Sir Timothy Lawrence, last visited the island for Cowes Week in July. The Duke of Edinburgh is due on the island on the 1st of May. The Princess Royal is scheduled to visit on the 16th of May.
Mind your manners. How rude are your children and grandchildren? If you buy presents, do you always get a thank you? Do they pay the extortionate ferry fare and visit occasionally? My grown-up kids lead busy lives, but thankfully they usually keep in touch. Occasionally my messages go unanswered, or until they feel like it, and sometimes they don't feel like it. How many seconds out of your hectic schedule does it take to reply to a text? The young are usually glued to their phones, so if you don't get prompt responses, it's likely they regard your communication as a nuisance. You'll see whole families glued to their phones or iPads. Very little chat takes place, sometimes even when the food arrives. Like everyone else, I use my phone too much, and I'm definitely on Facebook more often than I'd like to be. I try not to ask my kids too many long-winded questions by text, but as you get older, one begins to feel a little neglected when your messages are ignored. I pity parents of 10 or 11-year-olds because whatever those without children think, restricting kids' mobile phone use is virtually impossible. People with children often say there's no escaping school WhatsApp groups. In pre-mobile days, if you were having a hard time at school, it was all over by 3:30. Now anyone can be got at 24/7, and even homework comes via email on their phone. Lots of teens I meet struggle to say hello or glance in my direction, evidently more interested in their iPhone than boring old humans. To be fair, it's not just children who lack manners. This week someone told me about a defendant who refused to cooperate in adult court. When asked to plead, they cursed everyone from the dock using foul language. Stupidly, I assumed this would be contempt and that the person would be taken down to the cells to cool off, but not a bit of it. For practical reasons, that isn't really possible anymore. Practically, the best they can do is eject them from the building. What kind of message does that send? This idiot is regularly in the dock and clearly knows the system, a system which is evidently broken. Having picked on everyone under 30, I should report that I get nuisance texts from older people as early as 6 a.m. or way past midnight. I try to excuse these elderly senders because they nap all day, which presumably makes them unaware of the actual time. I used to phone an 80-year-old on a weekly basis. They always answered my cheery question, "What have you been up to?" with the same answer, "Nothing." Eventually I realized they really meant it. If pressed, they would triumphantly record, "We went food shopping on Monday," or would relate a recent episode of Pointless in forensic detail. I once paid an in-person afternoon visit to an older relative who was staying with her sister. To the question, "What have you two been up to then?" the old ladies described their morning breakfast. It went something like, "Well, we got up at 7 or was it 8? And I said, 'Would you like shredded wheat or cornflakes?' After another careful thought, her sister replied, 'We had cornflakes yesterday, so we should have shredded wheat today.' And on they went for 20 boring minutes. If you don't get out much, presumably what you've eaten, the telly and your neglect of family are the only things you can talk about, apart from your bowel movements, which always seems to become relatable when you hit old age. Most elderly people have mobiles these days, so I suppose bad manners can affect people in every age group, including mine.
Island's best balls. A large crowd gathered at the Isle of Wight Indoor Bowls Club to watch the grand final of this year's Open Bowls tournament and witnessed one of the best games of bowls ever seen on the island. The tournament started in November and is open to anyone who plays bowls. It attracted players from as far as Middlesex. Last year's champions, Darren Griffiths and Martin Butchers, started as favourites, but knew they had a formidable challenge confronting them in the form of the number 3 seeds, Anne Bernard and Ron Lelux. With all 4 players having previously won national events, a close game was expected, and that's exactly what happened. The standard of play was extremely high, with the lead changing hands many times. It finished level after 18 ends, so an extra was played to determine the winners. Even that was close, with the players asking the umpire to measure who was closest to the jack. It was Anne and Ron who were declared closest and awarded first.
White memories and nostalgia. 70 years ago, in April 1954, banking in Cowes took on a new form after a national accounting machine was installed. The machine automatically did the bookkeeping for customers. Instead of receiving a handwritten passbook of their accounts, customers now received typed statements, charting paid checks, credit received, and the balance of the account after each day transactions.
120 years ago, April 1904, a freshwater man shared his experience of Spanish brigands with local residents. Granville Ward was in Spain to pay accounts when he was ambushed by the robbers, who made off with around £400 of his belongings. Mr. Ward, known by the Spanish as Don Edmundo, was accompanied by a village doctor, but nothing of his was stolen. Mr. Ward said they evidently regarded him, a Spaniard, as being as poor as a rat.
Hear the story of the Isle of Wight volunteer soldiers. On Friday, April the 12th, retired Army Colonel Patrick Crowley will be coming to the Drill Hall in Newport to talk about the history of volunteer servicemen on the island. Last year saw the publication of Patrick's book, Rose, Cattle, Castle and Crown, a unique history of the part-time soldier of Hampshire and the island, from the time of the militia, yeomanry and volunteer through to the Territorial Army and today's Army Reserve. For centuries, the country has defended its shores with a mixture of regular and auxiliary soldiers. All military volunteers throughout history have had to balance the requirements of their service with family demands and their main civilian employment. This book tells their story, including the 3 brothers in the Isle of Wight Rifles who were all killed on the same day in Gallipoli in 1915, inspiring the film Saving Private Ryan. The book, published by Medina Publishing in Cowes, has been very well received, with Battlefield magazine praising it for being an impressive piece of research, doing justice to the often overlooked aspect of volunteer military units. The talk begins at 6:30 p.m. next Friday, April the 12th, at the Drill Hall on Drill Hall Lane in Newport. Tickets are £5 and available from Medina Bookshop in person, from IW Observer /Rose, Castle and Crown, or by phoning 01983 300 044.
On the County Press letters page, a mainland reader once wrote, "We have had considerable motoring experience in many lands, and frankly, the good manners of the average island motorist surprised us. Where will you see such courtesy, such well-timed hand signals, or such neat parking? All the drivers of commercial vehicles all keeping to their proper side of the road, driving quietly without exceeding their legal speed. As to your cyclists, they are superb. We Overners must hand it to the islanders. I am, sir, yours faithfully, BXQ 485. Well, he can't be talking about today, can he? No, that letter was written in 1936. BXQ 485 letter did not go unnoticed. Nerve-racked, had he say a few weeks later, "Sir, I have travelled a good deal, and I must say that the island is the noisiest place I have ever come across. Buses do not hoot in the ordinary way. They go screaming down the roads. Private cars lose all sense of proportion and hoot when it is quite unnecessary. All this goes on till well after the time when most visitors would like to go to bed to sleep and forget the tumult of the day. I am, sir, yours faithfully, nerve-racked."
My view, and today it is Heather Humby, MBE, Sandown Town Councillor and former Mayor. 50 years ago, in 1974, I had been a member of Sandown and Shanklin Urban District Council, one of 6 urban district councils covering the island, for 2 years, when the Local Government Act created 2 borough councils, Medina and South Wight, and I became a member of South Wight Borough Council. At the same time, the island gained its own Lord Lieutenant, with Lord Louis Mountbatten becoming the first of 6 to hold the post. We also had a new position of Isle of Wight High Sheriff, created with Lieutenant Colonel Claude Richard Henry Kindersley of Yarmouth, appointed. That year, 1974, also saw the start of events such as the island's annual Sports Award. For more than 20 years, SWBC championed tourism and leisure, with Don Moody promoting a series of prominent acts of Sandown Pavilion. Headline TV acts included Jimmy Tarbuck, Leslie Crowther, Cannon and Ball, and Little and Large. They all vied for the summer season, interspersed by Sunday shows shared with Shanklin Theatre. The 70s saw the opening of the revetment or promenade between Sandown and Shanklin, transforming the holiday experience for residents and tourists alike. Beachgoers needed to find their spot on the sand early, or have to trek to locations further away from the popular sites. The sites included Yaverland, where there was an annual BBC Radio 1 roadshow, with top DJs and headline bands performing on stage. There was no party politics in the Borough Council, and we had our own treasurer and surveyor. Local people were involved in local projects, such as the opening of the Heights and the partnership projects that was South Wight Sports Centre. We also invested in parks and gardens, as well as local events. In the 1980s, local residents were asking for a more local voice, and with Sandownians Norman Warner and Di Drayton, I collected signatures to campaign for a town council, with the petition lodged with the Speaker in the Houses of Parliament. We secured permission to start in 1984, with Shanklin soon following. I negotiated with the Borough Council use of Town Hall for the first meeting, and we then had a room at the railway station before starting up home at the Broadway Centre. Since being a councillor, I've been involved with visits from Princess Diana, the Queen Mother, Prince Michael of Kent, and the Duchess of Gloucester, who was part of an event to grant the freedom of the town to HMS Sandown. I've also had the privilege to be chairman of the Isle of Wight Council. Increasingly, over the past 50+ years, I've seen agriculture, tourism and boat building, all historically vital island activities, all diminish, sadly, in importance to the powers that be. Town and parish councils have had to take on more responsibilities, such as public toilets and lifeguards, and the influence of party politics has been more obvious. With 2024 being a year of celebrations and commemorations, it is fitting that the island's Lord Lieutenant would be a part of Sandown's commemoration of the 80th anniversary of D-Day. There will also be an acknowledgement of the part that Ireland has played in other World War II conflicts, such as Coima, Monte Cassino, Operation Market Garden, with a commitment made to support the Armed Forces Covenant. As someone who served in the Wrens, the Women's Royal Naval Service, followed by half a century in grassroots politics, I have seen a transformation of what is expected of small town and parish councils. I truly hope communities reflect on what this has been achieved by unpaid parish councillors and what can be achieved in the future by working together and putting residents first.
Now we turn to what's on. At Shanklin Theatre in April. On Friday, the 5th of April, from 7:30 p.m., Beyond the Barricade. On the 6th of April, the Saturday, at 7:30, One Night in Dublin. On Sunday, the 7th of April, from 3:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m., Al Murray. There are 2 shows there. Thursday, the 11th of April to Sunday, the 14th of April, Legally Blonde, the musical. On Thursday, the 18th of April at 7:30 p.m., Beatles, Bowie and Me.
Now what's on at the Medina Theatre? The Isle of Wight Cantata Choir Spring Concert is going to happen on Saturday the 13th of April at 7:30. The tickets for that are £16 for adults and £6 for under 18s. Forever Jackson is on Saturday the 20th of April at 7:30. Tickets are £23. Forever Jackson is the ultimate tribute to Michael Jackson, setting the industry alight and selling out revenues wherever they go. Robin Parsons plays true homage to the late great king of pop. And on the 26th of April at 7:30 p.m, tickets being £25.50, country superstars Dolly Parton and Friends. The world's biggest country music tribute touring show is coming as seen in London's West End Leicester Square Theatre. And they will be performing for us all.
And now we turn to letters. Rethink Design. The decision to replace Floating Bridge, the Fix, gives us the chance to rethink the whole concept of a floating bridge and apply a serious bit of island innovation. The island is renowned for innovation with hovercraft, seismology, rockets, etc. So let us keep the ideas coming. Just because it has always been done one way does not mean it always has to be done that way. Technology has moved on. The main problem is the tide, both with the rise and fall, and more importantly, the river flow. What we have now is pulling a massive brake of a ferry at right angles to the river flow, resulting in the need for significant force to keep it on track and with minimum influence on other river users. The ferry needs massive chains to counteract the forces imparted, but these need to drop to enough depths so as not to impede other river users. When the river is in full flow, the problems escalate. Bridge, the seventh, if based on the same chain pulling principle, can be built lighter, smaller, and hopefully quicker to transverse across the river. But the issues are still relevant, as any chain ferry pulled at right angles to river flow will be battling opposing forces. I therefore suggest we ditch the chains and turn the ferry 90 degrees so it just needs to stem the tide.
And on the same point, Brian Ash of East Cowes writes, another new floating bridge? It is with great disappointment that it is the intention of the current Isle of Wight Council to replace the existing excuse for such a vessel. Surely enough is enough. Do we really have to go through this same painful process repeatedly? The Council should obviously be considering a more beneficial and long-term solution to a River Medina crossing, a fixed bridge. The cost will be considerable, but about 100 years ago the then Council dismissed such a scheme on the grounds that it would cost, I believe, to be about £45,000. Whatever the cost, we know that this could be recouped over time with a toll-free. Look at the Severn Bridge crossing, a massive bridge, but costs have been recovered by toll payments and now it is free. Obviously, the island does not have a massive traffic flow, but if the toll is kept forever like the floating bridge, then continuous money will flow into the council coffers without the need to pay for replacement vessels or never-ending repairs. Also, a fixed bridge would benefit traffic flow on the island. All types of fixed bridges exist the length and breadth of our country, and I therefore implore the Council to think big for the long term and for the benefit of the whole island and its residents. I know surveys would have to be conducted, and I would recommend a site should be from Saunders Way, East Cowes, across to Northwood area, depending on suitability. The height would be sufficient for yachts and other vessels to pass easily underneath. In line with this, a permanent foot passenger vessel would be necessary near the existing chain bridge, rather than fight it. A ferry that has an hydrodynamic efficient shape, boat, and free from restraints, just a low-powered motor at each corner. Any flow of tide can be used to help the ferry crab across the river. That's better than fighting it. Let's also ditch the ferry boarding ramps to simplify its design by building shore-based link spans each side of the river. These can either terminate at a substantial river pontoon, similar to the Gosforth Ferry, or be hydraulically positioned. The cars need to be stacked north to south, so angled link spans would help.
Some concerns. A letter from Barry Constable of Chillerton. I refer to the proposed relocation of Medina Healthcare from its Wootton base to the refurbished and dedicated new premises in the former National Westminster Building in Newport. There appears to be a certain amount of outrage from the Wootton area about losing the medical centre and thus having to travel to Newport. It is my understanding that because of structural problems within the building, not the faults of the practice, relocation is necessary. I am aware that the original proposal was for temporary relocation whilst the Wootton building problems were rectified. However, circumstances change, and with the landlord wishing to sell the West Street surgery site, it seems to make economical sense to house all staff under one roof in a permanent building. Given the current situation within the country, with costs and all other problems, we all have to make sacrifices. I have some sympathy for the residents, but during the pandemic, all medical services were centered on Wootton, and then many people, myself included, were inconvenienced by the extra distance that then had to be traveled if needing to visit the surgery. These things happen. With all staff under the one roof, there must surely be benefits all round. There will always be winners and losers. With regard the proposed merger and interaction into Solent NHS Trust, I do have my concerns. I have been registered with a practice just short of 40 years and have always received first-class service from the doctors and nurses and all staff with never a cause for complaint. However, there are many reports where services within the NHS have been integrated in the name of efficiency and have failed to produce. I hope with a proposed merger and integration into a larger organization, the first-class service and standards I have come to know and appreciate from Medina Healthcare are not affected.
Jane Burton of Rookley writes, Dear Editor, after 100 days British MPs appear to be playing catch-up with the vast majority of public opinion on the war in Gaza. Suddenly they are all concerned that we might be complicit in enabling the alleged genocide being perpetrated by Israel. Well, we have been and still are providing Israel with the military means to conduct its war. Gaslighting public opinion by dropping a few aid packages out of the back of a cargo plane might be good PR, while simultaneously seeking to vilify peaceful protesters, but it doesn't absolve our government from responsibility when it comes to fueling the humanitarian atrocities being perpetrated in Gaza. Should we be surprised and shocked? Well, the current policy does come from a government who want to inflict humanitarian atrocities here in the UK too by criminalising rough sleepers.
All to play for. Letter from Tim Bristow of Ryde. The election is not a done deal. Vast silent majority in the country will vote Tory, but will not admit it to pollsters. Boundary changes favour the Tories. On the Isle of Wight, we have one Tory MP. Now with boundary change will be two. Starmer, with a landslide like Blair had in 1997, will only get a majority of 4 seats because of this change. Source from the Labour Party. All to play for then, Take advantage of the odds at bookies and make a tidy sum from the election.
And this one is from Ian Daw of Binsted. Dear Editor, I would like to correct something from last week's report on the meeting about Wootton Bridge Medical Centre. The area of discussion I engaged in surrounding the installation of military medical tents, not a marquee. I interrupted the chairman of Wootton Bridge Parish Council as he was not yielding to members of the public the whole point of the evening. I had become frustrated with his blithering, and the med tent was the final straw. They would be totally unsuitable for various reasons, including that they could serve as trigger point for veterans, with the tents being serving as a brutal reminder of battle. They were used in war, not peacetime. I suggested looking at council-owned properties that could be used and sought clarification from the panel on what is required to achieve the standard. It becoming an engaging discussion, and I reflected on the clinical term's dedication to the community and to personal commitment to medical practice. I apologise for dismissing the tent idea so bluntly, sharing the reasoning for my apologies. I am human like everyone else, and on the night my emotions were clouded by my mother's decline with Alzheimer's, which affected how I articulated my initial response. At the time, she was in the latter stages of life. This week, the wickedly cruel disease took her from us. For me, the most inane contribution came from the island's MP, when he made a gag about Harold Shipman, desperately inappropriate on every level, more so considering those present. Shipman targeted the OAP community, which accounts for just under half of those the practice in Wootton Bridge look after. One rule of comedy is missing your audience. The MP clearly missed that one with his truly shocking intervention. It left the room aghast, just for all the wrong reasons. And now that is the end of the newspaper we've been reading. So wish you all a very pleasant weekend, perhaps a little wet, and goodbye from Imelda.
And goodbye from Gerard.
The BBC In Touch programme follows. There is no scaffolding news this week.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Good evening. Do we visually impaired people want to be seen as a group, huddling together for warmth? Or do we resent the tendency to shove us all in the same category, what in less linguistically sensitive times people used to refer to as the blind? If you wanted to be a clever clogs, of course, you might claim that the mere fact that you're listening to In Touch proves that we do see ourselves as, at the very least, an interest group. But then you could contradict that by saying that many of us listen for information and that audience research and emails and letters we get show that many of those who do listen don't have a sight problem at all. Presumably, they're just nosy. What is undoubtedly true, though, is that if you're the shy and retiring type, it's not easy to go under the radar with poor sight, or none. I realised that at the moment I got up from the seat on the station platform where I was writing this script, I'd immediately be identified as part of that group as I unfurled my white cane, searched for the train door and then tried to find an empty seat, attempting to avoid sitting on someone's lap, all that stuff. So do we accept the inevitable and embrace the identity full on, or are there ways to select the profile we want to share with the rest of the world? Well, to discuss this dilemma, I'm joined by three people who seem to have gone about this in rather different ways. One who's fighting her corner and other people's at the same time. One who's looked at the funny side of blindness. And one who, because he's losing his sight, has tried to analyse it. Rachel Andrews, you basically took on the government by insisting on having a way to cast your vote secretly and independently. And you're currently taking on the social care system and your landlord for failing to send you accessible correspondence. Are you a natural scrapper or have circumstances forced it on you?
Am I a natural scrapper? Maybe people who know me would say yes, but I would say no. And I have to admit that a lot of the things that I now fight for, sometimes I'm doing it for the principle of it. Sometimes I'm doing it for myself, and sometimes I'm doing it for the people who come after me. So maybe I am a natural scrapper. I've never thought about it.
But
possibly, yeah.
But you do seem to have developed a taste for it since the court case that brought you to people's notice.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know if a taste for it's the right thing. I think I've been in the right place at the right time, and people have sort of come to me and said, I'm really fed up with this situation. What should I do about it? But I don't have the mental energy to take it on. So I am now vice chair of a local charity called Inclusive Norwich. So that's what I do all day long, and not only fight the cause for people who are visually impaired and need access in that way, but also for all sorts of other disabilities as well. So I think maybe I was in the right place at the right time and just sort of decided, yeah, okay, might as well,
Right, we may come back to you on whether you want to do it all day long. I want to bring in Jamie. Jamie McDonald, you're a stand-up comedian. You've decided to mine blindness for its jokes. Is that a defence mechanism, or do you just think blindness can actually be quite funny?
Yeah, I think you can blend the blindness and humour quite nicely. It's interesting that this is the topic today, because I'm literally finished a show, my new work in progress show, that talks about us being, I feel that disabled people, we have only been accepted as a lump, and I do believe we should be accepted on more of an individual level. I say that disabled folk, we're like snowflakes. There's not two of us the same, and if a lot of us fall, people panic. And the struggle now, because I've got RP, so I steadily lost my sight over about 30 years. And I don't want it to go back to the way it kind of was. And I talk about this in the show, the difference between now and then, where it was kind of a very inaccessible world 30 years ago. But now the world is it's a more kind of caring, nice place towards disabled people. But the new struggle that I find now is that nice, new, kind people will do the wrong thing, but for the right reasons, and I'll have to thank them for it and kind of suck it up. An example I use of that is when I got a cup of tea off the train. It's always train anecdotes for blind people, isn't it?
It is. We'll have some more. Our third guest is between trains. So
well, I got a cup of tea off the trolley. It was roasting, and the old lady next to it blew on it for me. And it's just to thank her and drink round the saliva. So I think there's that kind of, there has to be you are an individual, but you are blind. So you have got one thing in common with other blind people, but that's it. That's the one thing you have. And then behind the eyes is totally different from the head to the toes.
Okay, let me bring in Andrew Leland, who is the one who's between trains. As a reaction to knowing you were likely to lose your sight, because I think you've got the same thing as Jamie, actually, you've written a book, The Country of the Blind, analysing the different ways in which we react to the situation. Has it made you want to join the club?
I mean, I'm joining it whether I like to or not. There's no cure for RP, and my vision changes year by year. So, in that sense, I'm on a one-way train, and there's no getting off of it. But I guess the question is more about, whether I band together with this lump you're describing or try to be individual. And I find real solace and power in connecting with other blind people. I think about something a blind friend of mine said about Braille, which is that, we take for granted how sighted kids are just surrounded by a world of print. And to sort of expose a blind kid to a commensurate amount of Braille requires like a really concerted effort. And I've found that with blindness in general, I think just figuring out little things like what kind of screen reader should I use, or what kind of cane, or should I learn Braille? All those questions I'm very alone in until I really had to, spend years immersing myself. And those are just on a purely practical level, crucial questions and things for a blind person to figure out. And so, I think community has real value that will benefit anyone.
There's another way to look at it, Andrew, which some blind people do say to me, which is, the only trouble with a lot of blind people getting together is that then they all whinge. Is whinge an American term? I'm not sure. Moan, complain.
It's not whining. We would probably say whining or complaining. But yeah, I mean, I would say, there's therapeutic value in complaining. You don't want to have that be your primary occupation, but you've got to have a release valve for it. And if there's no one else in your life who's going to be able to appreciate, a stranger blowing on your tea in quite the same way, I think there's value in that.
So will you go on? I mean, I know in doing your research, you went to a lot of large organisations, things like the NFB, National Federation of the Blind in America. Do you think you'll stay with that kind of stuff?
Say with those kinds of groups,
the organisations, yeah. I mean, I just wonder whether you're a joiner or whether you want to be a slipper under the radar. Carry on, dude.
Well, I've cracked that code by becoming a writer, and I feel like I can hide under this cover of journalistic objectivity and say, I'm writing about the NFB, but I don't join them. But then along the way, I get to meet all these incredible blind mentors and, go to their training centers. So I try to have my cake and eat it too by dint of becoming a writer.
I must say, I mean, it is the contradictions in our own attitudes that quite interest me, because you quite often hear blind people say things like, I just want to be treated like everybody else. But of course, at the moment we are treated like everybody else, that can lead to problems too, because it means you won't get the help when you need it. Rachel, essentially, your campaigns involve us not being treated like everyone else, don't they? I mean, they involve concessions, or perhaps you'd prefer it if I said adaptations, but they certainly don't involve us being treated like everybody else.
No, I think you're right. I think what the campaigns and the work that I do and the people I work with, what we do is we want the outcome to be like everybody else's. So although I recognise the fact that when I go and vote, I'm never going to be treated like everybody else because the voting system is entirely a visual thing, the outcome of what I want is the same as everybody else, if you see what I mean. So I want it on equal terms, but I do recognise that because of the dint of my blindness, I cannot do it like everyone else. So yeah, it's a difficult balance to strike, but you don't have a choice. As Andrew said, we're on a train and there's no getting off. So you just got to do what you got to do, really.
Right. Is there go on.
Well, I'd argue that there's, in the way that there's no blind, there's also no everybody else. That's the kind of bit of a cover-up concept as well, because it's like, it suggests that everybody else is treated brilliantly and we're treated awful. I think when you say we want to treat it like everybody else, it's more like we just don't want to be patronised or, dragged across streets that you didn't want to cross, just people's understanding of blindness, of what because basically what you're dealing with when you're being as it's mistreated is their interpretation of what they think you want them to do in this nice world. So you've kind of created a rod for our own backs by saying like, we will not be treated like this. It's like, it's all right, so we're going to get treated like that, are we? Right? Yeah. So the genie's out the bottle. Yeah. But I don't think there's a case to say that there's an everybody else and then there's blind people. I don't think either of those are single things.
Right. I did promise Rachel to come back to you on the issue of, do you really want to be doing these things each day and every day? Because almost once you get your identity as a campaigner, you're sort of stuck with it, aren't you?
Yeah, kind of. And I've really kind of embraced that by joining Inclusive Norwich and being very...
Did they pay you to say their name twice?
No, but I am the vice chair, so I'm going to get it in whenever I can. I understand there's no such thing as bad publicity. But no, you don't want to do it all the time. But there are certain times where the world forces you to have to do it, or if you don't want to, you can go away and go, okay, well, I'm just not going to go and do that thing again, or I'm not going to go with that shop, or I'm not going to interact with that thing. And sometimes I do just go home and go, I can't be bothered. I'm not doing it today. I'd just rather go and walk with my dog. And there are other days where I'm mostly of the time, okay, let's have a bit of a scrap. So, like Jamie says, there's no one type of blind person, and you don't have to be the same type of blind person every day either. So it just depends how you're feeling,
I want to go back to Andrew on Penn Station in New York, because it's the contradictions that do fascinate me. I mean, again, it was on a station the other day when I realised just how drastic some of the contradictions are, in that I wanted to just stand on the platform waiting to meet somebody. I didn't want to go anywhere. I didn't want to do anything. And I stood on that platform and about 5 people came up and wanted to help me. Now, when I do want help, none of those people are ever around, you know. And so I get angry when there's no one to help, and I get angry when people want to help me when I don't want help. Is that something you've seen in your these contradictions that seem to assail us, really?
Yeah, that is such a confounding problem. And to expect the world to finally calibrate itself to be just what every blind person wants. And then, of course, you know, like you say, some blind people want more, some blind people want less, or different situations demand the differences.
Yeah, but the trouble, you want more and less within about 10 minutes of it yourself. You know, it's not other people wanting, it's you want.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I find so tricky.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's no universal rule. I mean, I think the only rule of thumb that I think sighted people just need to understand and to carry with them is to listen to the blind person. Because I think so often, you know, somebody will say, oh, do you need some help? And then they'll say no. And then that answer will be sort of brushed off and say, well, but let me just offer you something. Clearly you're in distress on some level, you know, and just pushing and pushing. And, you know, I don't know if it requires like wearing a T-shirt that says like, actually, I'm fine, thanks, unless I'm waving my arm, you know. But I think that's the big lesson, is just believe the blind person and let the blind person say what they need rather than offering it to them or dragging them across the street.
Right. I want to stay with you to raise something which I'm going to raise with all three of you. It's just one of the best quotes, I think. I think it was in your book, Andrew, but I've seen it a few times. It's Lady Georgina Cleage, who said, on a good day, my blindness is less important than the weather. Is that something you can, as someone who's losing their sight, is that something you can imagine?
Yeah, you know, I think it's tricky to compare disability to other identities, but I also think it's useful in a way. You know, and I think about, like, let's say gender. You know, I'm a man, and there are times when it's important for me to say that, you know, and to be a man. You know, there's times when my masculinity is relevant, but like when I'm going to eat lunch later today, I'm not going to be eating my salad as a man, right? I'm just eating a salad. And I think blindness can have the same kind of valence. It's like, there are times, yes, when I need an accessible voting machine, right? Or I need these materials to be put accessibly, or, you know, there needs to be Braille labels on the elevator. But many times I'm just, you know, I'm eating lunch, I'm going to work, I'm hanging out with my family, and blindness does matter less than the weather, as Georgina said.
I mean, Jamie, this issue of contradictions, but also if Georgina Cleage is right, and, you know, it's less important than the weather, that's tough for you, isn't it? You know, you built a lot of your act on the fact that it's quite a big deal.
Well, if it's less important than the weather, that's the case when it's icy, when the weather is very important. I see contradiction, and the blindness as being part of everyday life is part of the set. It's not exceptional. It's just little things. It doesn't have to be a significant blind thing. Like, I always think it's hilarious that they put Braille, the word bleach in Braille on bottles, because I just wonder whose life has that saved? You know, like these little kind of insignificant little inconsequential things, but it's just so hilarious. It's like, no blind person's going to drink bleach because there's no Braille in the bottle telling them it's bleach. You know, there's so many little things that are overlooked. Like, I mean, it's not a significant blind thing that we all kind of take care of walking down the street. That's just how we live our life. It's the blindness kind of steers our life in that kind of scenario. But I do feel that it is always there. If you think about it, you're always doing something. Like, you know, if you're doing something with the oven, you're not looking at the numbers, you've figured out how to do it, but that's governed by your blindness.
The great thing about this bottle story is that somebody pointed out that it was so significant that the English put Braille on a bottle of bleach, but the French put it on a bottle of champagne, which says a lot about the English, I think. Rachel, less important, how many days is it blindness less important than the weather to you?
Well, I think that depends on what you're doing.
On the blindness and the weather, I suppose.
Yeah, I think it also depends on, unfortunately, and this seems like a really terrible generalisation to make, but the rest of the world, because I can diddy-bop down the street with my guide dog, and just most people say, you know, oh, are you training the dog for a start? Because, of course, I don't even know what a typical guide dog owner is meant to look like. Apparently, I don't look like one. And then they will say how fantastic the guide dog is, and oh, I bet you'd be lost without him. Yes, I would. Isn't he handsome? Yes, he is. Oh, he's so amazing. Yes, he is. And then I'll move off, and they'll go, oh, wow, mind those steps, or mind the lamppost. And I think, well, did you not just sort of spend 10 minutes telling me how fantastic it was? So the rest of the world does have a little bit of a problem with what to do and how to treat visual impairment. So sometimes, if I don't meet that in the rest of the world, my visual impairment is not that important. I mean, obviously, as Jamie says, it governs how you do things, but it's not front and centre of everything I do. It's when it goes wrong that actually has to come front and centre.
That was, in a way, right at the root of why I wanted to talk about this. Front and centre. Let me just go back to you, Andrew, finally on this. You've written a book about it. You've spent a huge amount of time researching it. Can you imagine it not being front and centre?
I mean, I think that the point that was just made is spot on. You know, I wrote about a blind bioethicist named Adrienne Ash, who was blind from birth and always argued that blindness was incidental in her life. And until she entered the job market, you know, she graduated from college and was explicitly denied a job because she was blind. And her friends joked, like, Adrienne is 23 years old and just realized she's blind. And I think that kind of sums it up for me, is that, yeah, you don't need to think about it. It's just a way of living until it excludes you and it pushes you away from inclusion, whether that's inclusion to information or, you know, access to information or, you know, society or employment and all the things that blind people can be marginalized from.
OK, that sounds like a good place to stop. Andrew's got to catch a train. Rachel's got to go to a meeting. What have you got to do, Jamie?
I'll go for a nap, I think.
I go for a nap. Okay. Well, look, thank you all so much. Rachel Andrews, Jamie McDonald, Andrew Leland, Between Trains. Thank you very much indeed. We'd like to know what you think, listening to that. Are you a huddler together for warmth or a striker out for your own identity? Or are we entitled to do both? You can email in touch at bbc.co.uk, leave your voice messages on 0161 836 1338, and there's more information on our website, bbc.co.uk/in touch. Next week, we're going to be looking at plans to improve the ways visually impaired students get tailor-made equipment and human support. That's it from me, Peter White, producer Beth Hemmings, our guests and studio managers Kelly Young and James Bradshaw. Goodbye.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.